right, Sydney, thank you for those updates there. Right now, we're going to welcome our next live guest of the morning. We've got Robert Bain joining us from Metaphora. Robert, thank you for being here today, talking about the wild, wild world of truckload M&A, and if it's even worth entering without a strategy right now, especially in this type of market. So thank you for joining us.
I'm good to see y'all.
Good to see you, Robert. So let's jump into it right now. What is going on now? And obviously, you don't want to jump into this without a strategy, right? I mean, you don't want to just go in and start mergers and acquisitions, especially in a market right now. You need to know what is going on and why, truckload carriers are in a situation they are right now to be acquired.
Absolutely. You want to go in with a strategy. You want to make sure there's a few things to look at. You want to look at finding the right partners. You want to make sure that they're ready for, some type of partnership or acquisition. And the other thing too is you want to look at culture. You want to make sure that whoever you bring into your organization, many especially logistics companies, trucking companies consider themselves families. Who are you bringing into the family? And so it's really, really important to be considerate of that. And having a strategy detailed out before you go into the market is really important. So you kind of know those things that you're looking for, both good and maybe not so good. So you can kind of identify those red flags early and kind of cut it off at the pass, if that makes sense.
I think that when we talk a lot about specifically truckload carrier merger and acquisition, we see a lot of these people who are very selective about when they choose to enter markets, sometimes even waiting years or even decades in some cases before making a big move like this. And it can leave people kind of wondering, okay, are they just kind of settling into where they're existing? Are they not worried about growing? But it is really important to be selective through that process. And time is a really, really good indication of how selective you can be. Is there anything that surprises you when you see carriers wait so long to get into these deals? Or if you're seeing, on the flip side of that, you're seeing carriers enter multiple deals one after another after another?
Sure. When I see carriers and when we see carriers and our clients that maybe wait a long time to get into any type of relationship with anybody else and they look to grow, it really comes down to this indecision. And where that typically happens is either A, in the strategy planning, because people are thinking in their old process. They're not necessarily bringing in experts to look at, again, identifying those red flag areas, but then also the due diligence process. You may have identified another organization that makes sense. The culture seems good. The leadership is, ripe for whether they're going to stay on or they're going to help with the transition. And then the due diligence process kind of breaks down where kind of that, paralysis by analysis process. And so typically what we see is that it's really important to bring in experts. And obviously we provide that service at Metaphora, and we encourage that because these type of experts are skilled in investigating, auditing, and really just verifying that everything that you're being told is true, and it kind of expedites that process. We certainly never want to put any organization in a spiral where they're going too fast, but certainly especially right now where some of the wallets around the banks and around VCs and PEs are tightening a little bit. We want to make sure that we can keep those deals moving forward for our clients, and so we can keep those timelines ready. But certainly, what surprises me when people wait a long, long time, because a lot of times you'll hear them talk about we want to add this service, we want to add this type of capability, and many times those are challenging to grow, and so we want to make sure that when you find that right partner, we can get that capability in, and they can take advantage of markets as they continue to shift.
Is that the name of the game right now, Robert, is adding those services that maybe you don't have right now and broadening your value add through mergers and acquisitions, as opposed to expanding capacity? Because it would seem to me, just looking at it, and I don't know, so I'll ask the question, if you're looking to be acquired or to acquire, well, acquiring, it seems like it might be an easy thing to do right now, but have you lost the ability really or missed the boat in being acquired and getting your best multiple?
That's a great question. I think there's some folks that are certainly questioning multiples that have been out there. I don't think that time has passed, though. Really, there is a great opportunity, especially if you are very strong in certain capabilities. I believe, and as I talk to clients, that we certainly see bringing on capabilities, but capacity is another one. Where so certainly it can be a little bit of both. But certainly those who are looking to acquire, there are right partners out there. And for those that are looking to be acquired or even considering it, that time for those great multiples has not passed. But again, having that strategy going in is step one, and making sure that, if you're going to be acquired, that right buyer is there, or if, depending if it's going to be a merger, then those right financial partners are there too.
Robert, I know we're talking specifically kind of about the joining pieces of mergers and acquisitions and within the truckload market, but I kind of want to get your thoughts on when people know that it's time to maybe cut off a piece of their business or divest a little bit from what their goal mission is. Thinking specifically of XPO and all of the news this last year of them cutting off their intermodal sector, cutting off their brokerage, and really becoming this kind of pure play provider and finding their niche doing things that are really, really well. So when we're going that direction, how do you know when it's time to maybe make a break from one piece of your business and focus in on something else? And then how do you go about making that piece that you broke off, either transforming it into something new or putting it up to be acquired from someone else?
Certainly. I think that's a great question. I think that's something that's been interesting as we've seen so much M&A going on across the industry. And then to your point, you do see XPO go in the opposite direction. It really comes down to, what have you built from a strength perspective? And have you created differentiation in that particular piece of your business? Some folks say, hey, we want to be differentiating, and that makes us strong. But then now with some of those multiples still being out there and still being available, it makes sense because then you can double down on those particular pieces of your business. In XPO's case, the LTL sector, that you really want to focus on. So focusing on what you're strong in, and so making that decision. And again, thinking of that strategy piece. What is it we want to be good at? If we decide we want to be specifically this LTL provider, great. Let's take what we've done previously through acquisition and let's tighten this up, tighten up the financials, and then we'll take this to market while still the market is pretty warm.
Yeah, so Robert, when there's some deals to be had out there, and I would imagine if the market stays soft, there will be more deals to be had out there, right? And there's definitely good strategies for M&A, obviously, otherwise it would not be happening. How do you avoid making that mistake of the costs of that integration, right? I mean, you go into this thing, you're doing your due diligence, you're understanding that has to be part of the due diligence, right? That's not kind of on the other. You're looking at their books, you're looking at their forecast, you're looking at their receivable, you're looking at all these things, going through all your due diligence of that company you're acquiring. But missing out on what it is actually going to be to make that merger integration successful is a huge cost and a huge item to analyze, right?
Absolutely. And that, I think, is probably the most important stage of any merger acquisition is that post-merger integration. Because to your point, you've gone through this diligence, you've seen the books, everything looks great. And now how do we make this new entity, whatever it's going to be, even if the two companies, maintain their identity, how do they work together? And how does this all play in? Because ultimately, from a financial perspective, it all rolls up to the top, right? And so we want to make sure that all those things are all going to keep the same flavor, but also it is going to merge together. And so taking that time to instill what is going to go, what is going to start, what is going to stop, what is going to continue. And that is from the top down. That is from operations perspective, operating model, roles, responsibilities, compensation is another huge one. As you bring people into the organization and their roles evolve and adjust, you have to make sure you're compensating them properly. And in some cases, that means that their comp needs to be raised. In some cases, that means their comp needs to be adjusted down, and there's conversations need to be had around that. And so making sure that all those things are kind of done ahead of time. And then the last piece of that is then communicating that. That's a huge, huge piece, is being able to have those frank conversations with the teams on how their role is going to change, how the organization is going to change, what the ultimate goal of this new entity is going to be, or entities is going to be if you're splitting off the business, and then bringing those cultures together. It's also what you want to have. The utopia is you have the best of both cultures, and you kind of can, because of this new beginning, you can kind of cut off the dead weight and the not so great part of those cultures.
Yeah, I really like the point you made about communicating those, because you can have the best plan in the world. If you don't communicate it and make sure the pieces that need to execute are understanding what their missions are and do execute, not necessarily flawlessly, but in an efficient manner, it's all going to cave in on you, right?
Absolutely. And the biggest thing you got to do, once you announce that there is a merger or there's an acquisition or something like this happening, people are scared. Every person that's a professional, if you're past the age of 25, you've heard about mergers and acquisitions happening and people losing their jobs. And so if that's going to happen, you need to make sure that's communicated in the right way. If it's not going to and everybody's going to stay, you need to make sure you communicate that. You need to assuage those fears. There's going to be some attrition because people just don't like that there's a new thing happening. But you have to make sure that you communicate that so you can mitigate potentially those exodus that may happen because people just don't understand what they don't understand.
Exactly. And the moment it seems like you're not communicating correctly or something comes off not exactly the way you said it, the conspiracies and everything starts whispering, and you've got issues. You've got rats jumping off the ship, so to speak.
I'm always one for a good conspiracy theory, so absolutely.
I know you are. No conspiracy here. You are the strongest man in logistics. I've seen the certificate. Check your stuff out.
Numbers don't lie.
They don't lie. Hey, thank you so much for being on the program. We'll catch up with you a little bit later. You have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, sir. Right now, I'm going to toss it over to Kaylee Nix for another look at our weather.